Welcome back, everybody. It's DestinysJesus. In today's video, we're looking at 3 levels of these new cups that have been added. We're looking at contender, challenger, and elite. For our elite level players, so basically the pros that we're looking at in this video, is going to be Chapix and Tayson. These guys are already in first place. They know how to play the new meta perfectly already. They're really good. Very few mistakes from them, and a lot of things that you guys can learn later on in this video. For our challenge level players, we're going to be choosing Archie here. Archie obviously playing the game the whole time. He's putting a lot of hours in, and he's finally managed to actually qualify for some type of final. He's in the elite finals now after getting top 30 in this round. And as you can see, pretty decent game history. There's a couple of things that you guys can learn from, and a couple of mistakes that he's still making that he needs to fix up, and a lot of micro decision things that you guys can learn from as well. And if you contend, I'm choosing some random duo I found off the leaderboard, so I hope you guys enjoy. Just quickly, I'm going to be making a masterclass update for duos, specifically for the season. I'm doing a whole load of videos on there from loads of different pros and stuff, watching back their games, going through, telling you guys what you need to be doing in the new meta, loads of new strategies in there, and it should be coming out within the next week. So make sure you guys go check that out on the duos masterclass. Alright, let's get straight into this with some early game stuff. So there's a couple of big mistakes that our contender level players here, the beginner level players make. These guys didn't manage to qualify for contenders, and this is a big mistake, especially in their first game. Something you really want to be avoiding is going down at all. So you can see here, as he commits forward, they're not aware of the third party that's going to come in as soon as they start fighting. And it seems there's a nice bully bomb play, and at this point, he comes in, and you can see here, there's one player that you can't see that his teammate is fighting, another player that's not looking at him as well. He's got like a perfect flank. What you should do in this scenario is just try to get as much piece control as possible, so then your teammate can come through and help you. He goes for the shot, misses it unfortunately, and then at this point he completely forgets about the guy running, so he doesn't block off any of those angles, doesn't get a wall on him at all. Goes to the shot on this guy, the guy just jumps straight into his box from behind, and he goes down. And as soon as this happens, of course, the third party comes straight in, and this basically messes up their whole game. In the contender division, it's only 1 point per kill, so obviously it's not worth WQing too much, but this completely ruins the chance of them having a solid mid game and being able to take any more fights and get stacked for an end game because he went down in that fashion. So now as we come into these contender division games here, you can see that they're not stacked at all, and obviously it's a really heavy placement cup. How a lot of people are king, and the reason you need to be king and trying to get some kills during mid game is you need to have good loot going into end game. The people that tend to win these games or consistently do really well on them will key a little bit, so they have really stacked loot, they have good guns, they have good rarity guns, means they can do a lot more in endgame. And most importantly, they have good heals like splashes and things like that, so they just have a lot higher chance of doing well. These guys go for their first kill here on 4th zone on a solo that's boxed up. It's not a bad kill to get, however it's not that impactful on their game because their mats are already really good. Mid game and map management in these is extremely easy. It's really easy to just go into 50-50 zone with like 1,000+ mats each, because obviously there's no surge or anything like that. But you need to make sure you try to get some kills, or you try to land at a better POI and clear out, just so you're a little bit more stats going into endgame. This right here is a really nice play by Tayson Chapix. This is one thing that a lot of you guys need to learn to get better at Fortnite, is that not every single fight is worth it. So you can see here, they're going ahead and camping this building for a little bit. They're going to go ahead and get a nice opening shot onto this player in a second, and they decide to go ahead and aggro it. As you can see, the fight plays out. These are obviously 2 very good players, and they immediately go ahead and just start reboxing, making loads of space. They don't want to waste the whole game. This is what you guys should do. Tayson gets another big chunk in here and cracks the other one. However, they don't commit past this point. They see that the guys have reboxed even further in metal. They've gone ahead and splashed up. At this point, it's not worth committing for this kill here. It just turns into a bit of a grief fight where these guys have got loads of space, and they've already wasted most of their heals in this fight, and they're going to go ahead and die to another team in a second here. There's no point trying to commit to a fight after you've done that much damage and they've already healed up, because you're not going to gain anything from it. Or sometimes to finish the fight, they have to jump into box. These guys go ahead and just leave it. And that's a really good rule to have, is if a fight's taking more than 30 seconds, like a mid-game fight, it's probably not worth it at that point for either of your 2 teams. Now this rotate here is a very nice rotate to do. They go ahead and swim around the ocean here, get a snipe onto the team, make sure they block off important angles like as they come around here. And one very nice thing that they do that not a lot of other teams do is they stop going center third, even though they could, and decide to just control this whole space around here in a spot where they can refarm. Tayson's a really big avid refarm. He loves to spend the whole time swinging his pickaxe during mid game, so they stop in this position where you can refarm as much as possible, as you can see here. But they don't actually commit to rotating center until the next zone pops up, just like this. And as you can see, their mats are way better at this point. They're both for 125+ builds, and this is still a very free rotate that they do with Chrome Splash. For Archie and Nathan's 50-50 rotate here, you can see they actually do a couple of nice things, and that's what you can do when you're over in these sort of lower elo challenger lobbies like these guys around here. So what they go ahead and do is pre-tarp the extra mats they have from a body that they got earlier. This means that they have like a timing buffer on all of these other players on backside that need to Chrome Splash and go forward, and they can go earlier than them. So what they go ahead and do is get themselves a little bit towards center of zone. Center forward is really good in the current meta. They wait here for the only other team that's sort of near them, it's their current threat to leave. So they notice these guys leave. They do make a mistake here of not actually editing the wall before they go into Chrome Splash. And then they go ahead and rotate. And this is really nice. You can see here the timing. Everyone else is on backside. They're not going to be in a rush where everyone's getting out of the blob form at the same point and getting in box, like what happens quite a lot nowadays. And then you can see as soon as they get out, they go center of zone and they immediately start building up, connect to this team right here, but actually get up in an established high ground position, which is really good to do. A lot of the times people just get out of the blob form or whatever and just immediately start boxing up, and no one is playing for height at the moment. So if you can consistently start playing for height and you play height properly, you have a lot more consistent games in terms of wins. This 50-50 rotate by Tayson Chapix is actually pretty poor here. I think they made a few mistakes on this rotate. So you can see they're going to go ahead and go. The one thing that they've done is they haven't waited for this team here to actually go first. So you can see, it might be a little bit scuffed now because zone is basically fully closing. But these guys haven't gone first and they haven't actually scouted and realised that. So you can see this team immediately opens up and starts shooting them, beaming them. So they're forced to stop. At this point, Chapix decides to stay and try to snipe the team. Tayson continues going. And this is a big mistake. You never want to be solo blob rotating, especially when you're in the open like this, especially when you're coming up onto a spot where you have no line of sight on. Of course, he's getting shot out already with his team here, but as he comes over this ridge here, he can't see any of these teams, and he just immediately hops up into a spot where he's between this team, and also another team that immediately starts aggroing him when he comes out of blob form. So you can see that because of the fact he went into an open space without actually scouting out what was going on before, and also because he was split from Chapix, he ended up actually almost dying to that team there, and they waste a lot of their heals. One tip I can give you guys, whenever you're using the blob and you're not really sure what to do with it, always take a little bit more time just scouting out what's going on, figuring out if you can go in from a different way. 100% these guys could have gone ahead as they were coming in and actually wrapped around zone a little bit more, and then got out somewhere around here probably to be a lot safer. Or alternatively, just get out a bit sooner, be together, and then tarp in together so you don't get aggroed as much. As first moving begins to show, you can see these guys are in the center 50-50 still. They've got a really wide base and they actually did some ramps towards this other height team to force them to drop. And as soon as it pulls, they go ahead and connect to the other height base and immediately just start pre-tarping towards front side of zone. They want to get front side as quick as possible so no other team can build up. They want to have that really high layer established over the top of them. As you can see, it might look a bit stupid, but nobody is really taking height in the current meta. And as long as you're not super high up where you can get chopped out, and as long as you get headshot sniped, holding height is one of the best strategies you can do to get consistent games. You can see there he goes in and connects to the second height team, and then from now on they just go ahead and hold pretty much everyone that's blobbing. And one thing you need to do whenever you're on height is try not to ADS and stand still for too long. Whenever you're ADSing, make sure you actually go ahead and move around a lot, as you can see that Nathan's doing here, just so you reduce the chances of someone up front side looking up for a headshot sniping you. Never sit still, never crouch as well. It's really important to make sure you don't do that. Now that we're established up on height, it's very important that you make sure you connect towards the end of zone. So you can see as they get towards the end of zone, Archie jumps down and connects. Now he builds up and makes sure they're established. And you can see they're basically fully set up to do well this game. The only thing you need to worry about at this point, now that there's still decent mats on height end of first moving, is someone sneaking currently, and then also someone going for headshot snipe on you. And you can see how they have really good awareness on people sneaking. It's actually going ahead and playing completely split here, and they're also not aggroing anything for too long, so they can immediately hear when people come up just like this. They both 90 up in wood and get ready to fight. And then as the other team is forced to drop, they're still able to establish height, and they swap back to hard mats. Now going into first moving here, these guys actually do a couple nice things on this rotate. First of all, is there are a lot more groups on this rotate, as you can see. They both go ahead and blob, and instead of Chapix going up here and just going on this high layer, we'd be split from his teammate, he immediately goes ahead and starts regrouping just like this. And they immediately start looking for a refresh on someone they land. So you can see here, Chapix spotted this solo that boxed up. He goes immediately and gets to Tayson and immediately just aggroes the solo. And one thing whenever you're doing when you're trying to go for a refresh, especially when you have double prime, is make sure you do a nice open edit where you both can pump at the exact same time. As you can see here, it does freeze unfortunately, but he gets the cone slide and there's a nice open edit so both of them pump the guy at the same time and they instantly go ahead and kill him. Another thing that Chapix does is he doesn't bother picking up this prime shotgun. A lot of players would waste the time there, take a storm, take a something. It doesn't impact your game that much compared to just staying front side and getting into a good position with your duo instead of just faffing around in the storm picking up a gun, which is something actually Archie did later on in this video and got himself killed with it. Now you can see for the end of first moving, these guys do a very nice play, which is actually not to aggro anyone, and instead try to get further into the end of first moving by going through the building, and they're trying to get towards this north dead side here, which can be really important as we come to second moving. So as you can see, as second moving pulls, the north dead side is still there, and instead of going through the blob form like everyone else is going to do, and cutting through this really congested south side, what they go ahead and do is chop through for a second. Obviously, there's a lot of odd builds here. They chop through the whole way, manage to come out, and then now they can blob through all this open space around them. As you can see here, it's just loads of open space. It's obviously very hard to get shot at because other people over here are focused on the duos that are on their congested side with them. So they get a really nice free rotate and actually go down towards this low ground cutoff point here, where they start trying to claim low ground and play for it. Big mistake that causes these guys to actually lose height this game is after they deal with the initial height threat of these people coming up, as you can see, they build up and get above them, is they immediately realize, okay, this one team has been dealt with, but there's still another 12 teams in the lobby that are pretty much stacked and could go ahead and try to take height. And the big mistake Archie makes is he starts worrying too much about front side and staying connected, whereas at this point there's too many builds here for them to actually realistically get chopped out. As you can see, there's loads of builds, there's loads of connection points already from the team coming up. They don't need to worry about going down to connect. You can see he drops down, he tries to connect to them when they're already connected here, and that actually leaves a timing where Nathan is left solo up on height and the team is able to sneak up. What they should have done is just chilled and play this established layer here for a second, make sure everything on their back end was cleared out. And unfortunately, you can see here, team ends up sneaking on Nathan on backside height. He gets pumped from the back, and he tries to do a very good play, which is actually to go ahead and chrome splash down. But unfortunately, he gets pumped out there as he goes down. It's left to Archie to solo clutch from second moving, which obviously isn't the ideal situation. So now these guys are fully committed to playing low ground, but one thing you notice is they actually keep on playing it through the expanding side. This is really important. Basically, where the zone is pulling to, you can see it's pulling sort of south and towards the west here, is expanding quite quickly on this right-hand side for them. And a lot of people don't realize how this works. The zone mechanics, they think it just sort of pulls one straight continuous line. However, it expands really aggressively on this side, almost as much as it's expanding on the front side of zone. And this actually gets them a really nice refresh here. So you're going to see they do a nice open edit, go ahead and chrome splash forward. And this guy thinks, oh, I've got Storm to my back, I don't have to cover angles. Obviously, this guy gets awareness checked a little bit. And they both just hop out of the blob form right next to him, double pump him, get a very nice refresh. And they also go ahead and aggro this other duo that is fighting down here and get all the loot from it. And now they're insanely stacked on mats to get good heals from this, really big refresh. And that is just a very simple case of just using dead side to advantage, and especially the expanding side on moving zone is really important to be using like they do there. Now the rest of this, they don't get too complicated. They go ahead and just full tarp in, don't take any risks from this point forward, and they're just going to go ahead and full tarp and play really smart together. At this point, you probably shouldn't be blobbing around too much. It's better to just tarp, especially when you get a big refresh like they just did. So for our contender league endgames, one thing that you need to do whenever you're playing in these type of games is just have a consistent game plan about what you're going to do going into the end game. So what I mean by that is basically to go ahead and have a plan what you're going to do, how you're going to play the game. Do you want to play low ground? Do you want to play mid ground consistently? Do you want to try to take height at certain points? Do you want to play height from first moving? You need to have a plan on what you're going to do so you don't just run into a situation where, let's say, just one of you called something randomly, you just start doing it. Like right here is a classic example. These guys don't have an idea of what they're doing. They've still got decent mats between them. You can see here, 160 builds. They decide to just start sprinting in the open zone through low ground and then running into a whole lot of different people. As you can see here, he gets out in a really congested area. Now he's starting to play low ground. His teammate is split from him. His teammate doesn't know what he's doing. He ends up getting beamed by height. Actually going down Storm here, a little bit unfortunate. Not really ideal. And now he's left into a solo clutch. This is all preventable just by having a solid game plan that you both understand going into the moving zones so you know how to play it. In these types of games where it's just extremely heavy placement based, you don't need to be overcomplicating it. Just have a solid plan about what you want to do going into it and then play from there. Now for this solo clutch, there's a lot of mistakes that he makes here. First of all, is he's just playing Storm way too early when he's got good mats. Whenever you've got floppers or amendments or something, you want to be trying to play it as late as possible. There he also took a left-hand peek when he was low HP, just like you never should do. Never take damage trades like that when you don't need to, you don't need a refresh. There he just got a kill, didn't go for any of the mats. Again, just simple stuff like that. That's really needless. And then as you can see, as he begins rotating forward here, he gets aggroed by this team and he immediately starts panicking. What you should do is just hold in this position, make some space out. The Raiders edit training map is sort of needed. I've said it like 7 times, just practicing those close tight angle edits. And then here at this point, there's a couple things that you should have done differently. First of all, he goes up a layer for no needless reason. He should have taken the time to stay on a low layer, mainly because you don't want to be getting focused by height here, especially because he's only got wood. Now when he starts getting focused by height, as you can see, he sort of panics, realizes on second height. He's still got mats at this point, and he decides to double back into Storm rather than just keep on playing and tarping forward with the remaining mats he had. Now he full plays his flopper and Storm, then starts to come in at this point. At this point, your main goal shouldn't even be to fight, it's just try to get in for a second and then wait for people to fight. And you've still got 12 builds where you can cut someone off and get a refresh that way. But instead he tries to fight, sprays people, and gets shot by height and dies with mats, which is something you should never do in a solo clutch. Now that we're into this Archie solo clutch, she actually plays this somewhat decent. There's a couple of things you guys can learn here, and a few mistakes, of course, that we can point out. So one big thing that Archie always does is he forgets to micromanage his guns. He doesn't reload his prime, which is really important. So as you can see here, he hits 71, but because he hasn't reloaded his gun earlier, and he still hasn't reloaded his gun at this point, he's only got one bullet left, and that bullet is obviously not the hard-hitting one. If you reload the blue prime and then you hit a body shot, it's 125 body shot, which at this point in the game is enough to one-shot pretty much anyone. It'd be enough to one-shot this guy 100% just with the body shot. So he needs to take more time to actually reload his guns, and instead he sort of panics and overbuilds, doesn't commit forward trying to get the body, and now he has to spend the time reloading, and he doesn't actually commit to getting the body. Instead, just spend more time actually reloading, especially when you're playing a prime endgame, so you don't run into a situation like that where you're not confident enough to go for a body, because that body had a lot of mats. One thing you've got to remember, whenever someone actually tries to commit into your box like that, it tends to be the fragger, and the fragger most of the time will have more mats from what I've seen, just because they're the one who's actually going for the refresh and they haven't dropped their teammate mats just yet. So you can see that the guy tarping has less mats than the guy who killed. Should have 100% tried to go for those mats. Now that he's in this position here, he's only got 11 builds. One thing you need to do is just try to use your movement, and you want to try to stay close to people and not be too isolated. You can see here, he makes the mistake of actually going too wide away from these builds, and that means that he's actually having to build more just because he's more open and exposed. He's also not quite in the end of zone here. If he went closer to these builds and slid for a second, as you can see here, he'd basically already be in and have to do a much cheaper tarp. Obviously, you might get aggro from the side, but that's one of those fights that you sort of have to take. Instead, he leaves a whole load of open space in front of him, where a team just cuts him off, and now he's in a very scuffed position where he's cut off by a duo, manages to avoid that guy, and now he's basically running around, playing like he's got 0 mats in this scuffed situation. Very nice simple jump in play, and this is where probably the biggest mistake of this whole clutch comes from. He tries to pick up someone else's shotgun, and whenever you do that, you don't actually know what ammo is in it. Especially with the prime, is so important. He's shot one bullet of his prime. All he needs to go ahead and do is reload, and he'd have a gun that's ready with 125 body shot potential. And instead, he picks up someone else's gun. He's faffing around picking up all the items, and immediately gets aggroed by a duo who saw him actually get that kill. And as you can see, now he's in a scuff situation where he's in someone else's tarp. He hasn't gone to the effort of making the loot airtight, and that immediately leads to his death here, where he gets aggroed by the duo. He can't really do anything in the situation. He panics around a little bit, can't get out of this box, and then the duo just phases through and he dies. Very, very rarely is it worth spending the time picking up someone's shotgun or anything in a clutch. Of course, if you've got a lot of time and you've just killed someone and you know you're in a 1v1 or something like that, it's worth it. Have it in a situation where you jump into someone's box, you don't know what edits he was, you don't know the surroundings, you don't know where the escapes are. Going ahead and spending like an extra second picking up someone's shotgun that might not even be loaded is never a good play, and that leads to his death directly there. If he just didn't pick up the gun, instead reloaded and got out of the box, he'd be able to actually clutch a lot more because he'd have enough mats to play with and be able to tarp a little bit as well. So as we come to this final zone position for Tayson Chapix, you can see they're actually doing a 2-wide tarp and trying to force everyone down instant to get a refresh. It's not necessarily about killing everyone, but it's most important about having all this space claimed, claiming the whole of low ground. So whenever someone does die, you can get all the mats from it and continue to keep doing this play as well until you're left into a 2v2 with a high ground team. So you can see they keep doing this for ages. They realise they're getting sprayed too much by heights. They actually chrome splash all of their wood above them. So it's a really good play to do. Whenever you're getting server sprayed or in a situation like this, just go ahead and chrome splash your builds. You can see it goes from 100 HP, so something like 4 AR bullets to break it, into 290 HP instant. Just really good. Now this is a very smart heads up play. They drop down to full low ground, and at this point they realise, okay, the terrain changes. Height is 100% going to drop on us. They haven't got any mats because of how they were playing from earlier. So they go ahead, keep chrome splashing the builds. Tayson's got some really good aim right there. And then height drops down. Decent play by height. They've dropped down from different angles at the same time. Unfortunately, this angle gets blocked off. And of course, as Tayson gets pumped from the back, they create it into a 2v1, instantly take the fight. They don't fanny about, they don't try splashing, they just immediately take the fight, go for the shot, and at this point, they heal up, and now it's a 2v1. And even though they're low HP from these guys dropping on Storm on them, they're able to go ahead and build up onto height with the mats that they saved from earlier, and they win the game just from that.